High school football is here, and tonight the Bishop Verot High School Vikings are hosting their rivals, the Jesuit High School Tigers from Tampa, to officially kick off the season. But of course, the season is anything but normal. As Fox 4's Sandra Rodriguez shows us, there are COVID-19 precautions in place to keep players and fans safe. Sandra?
Well, Jane, although capacity was limited for tonight's game, there was still plenty of excitement going around from parents telling me they're just happy to get to see their kids perform tonight. Are you ready for high school football? Well, the players at Bishop Verot Catholic High School sure are. Tonight, kicking off the start of the season against the Jesuit High School Tigers from Tampa.
3 weeks ago, we didn't know if they were going to vote to even have a season. So the fact that we're able to be out here and be one of the first teams playing, we're just truly blessed.
But it wasn't just the players that were anxiously waiting for this night.
I'm super excited. I couldn't imagine being anyplace else than right here, right now.
Parents like Humphreys excited to see their kids hit the field.
You know, I've been coaching since he was 5 years old. I've never missed a game.
But this season, things will look a bit different. With designated sections on the stands, temperature checks at the gate, and mask a must to enter.
You know, with COVID, we just didn't know what was going to happen, and the school's done an amazing job on keeping them, you know, separated and clean and just doing the best they can.
Tickets limited to 3 per player and performer. Some tickets going to the rival high school. But even with a limited capacity, parents say there will be no lack of cheers coming from the stands.
Oh, we will be. Trust me. We'll be here. We'll be ready.
The athletic director for Bishop Verot tells me he hopes that by mid-season they'll be able to host 50% capacity. Now, the school does have a live stream of their games, and you can find a link on the high school's Facebook page. In Fort Myers, Sandra Rodriguez, Fox 4, in your corner.
Thanks, Sandra. And the game ended just a few minutes ago. Unfortunately, not the opening night the Vikings wanted. After a strong first half, they couldn't shake the Tigers, falling 28-21. Tonight, we're looking at the new steps aimed at catching a murderer behind a brutal crime. September 4th, 2019, Bowman Slater, also known as B-Love, a transgender woman, was found burned beyond recognition in her car around 1218 Virginia Avenue in Clewiston. 1 year later, Hendry County Sheriff's Office, the FBI, and Slater's family are calling for answers. In a press conference this morning, the Hendry County Sheriff's Office tells Fox 4 they've joined forces with the FBI, doubling the reward amount now from $5,000 to $10,000. At this time, the FBI is still investigating, but they tell us they're now looking at this case as a possible hate crime.
Hate crimes are the highest priority of the FBI's civil rights program, and we're working in partnership with Hendry County in order to solve this case. The murder of B-Love Slater 1 year ago demands our investigative rigor and commitment.
Investigators ask if you have any information, you're urged to call the Hendry County Sheriff's Office. Bar owners are in limbo tonight, waiting for the green light to serve alcohol again. Some have reported to getting a food license to sell hard drinks under new COVID restrictions, but it's not that easy for everyone. It's been more than 2 months since the Department of Business and Professional Regulation made the call, and some bars can't wait any longer. Ollie's Pub in Cape Coral says he's on the verge of closing. The owner of Cowboy Up Saloon in Fort Myers got a license to sell food, so his doors are open again. And he says he's hoping the governor will make the right call to open all businesses, but cautiously.
But I don't expect the governor to reopen nightclubs or bars at 100%. You know, that's kind of unrealistic, I think.
And he says the safest way to do it would be to open bars and clubs at 50% capacity and require physical distancing until it's safe enough to open at full capacity. Governor Ron DeSantis met with regulators this week to come up with a plan.
If there's a man in your life that you love, and not just in that kind of way, it could be a dad, a friend, a cousin, now could be time to have the talk. The topic, their prostate. And newsflash, it could be a little uncomfortable. That's why I went looking for someone who could get the conversation started in your home and someone who wouldn't hold back.
And I found him.
Do you have any questions for me?
Are you married?
This is Raymond Mong, also known as Grandpa Ed.
Grandpa Ed, you are in trouble.
I know. I've been in trouble all my life.
He says what he thinks and it kind of lets you know, but he's never met a stranger either.
And not a stranger to your TV, one of Grandpa Ed's grandchildren. You might recognize him more like this, Fox 4 morning meteorologist Trent Eric, who describes the 86-year-old former millwright from Indiana as
a loving guy and somebody who's just full of life at his age.
A gift, Trent says, considering the news their family received a little over 10 years ago.
I was kind of shocked.
After a routine annual physical and blood test, Grandpa Ed's doctor noticed an elevated PSA, that stands for prostate-specific antigen, and he sent him to a urologist.
And he checked me out, and I did have prostate cancer.
Experts describe the prostate as a small rubbery gland that's the size of a ping pong ball. It sits under the bladder and in front of the rectum. Prostate cancer occurs when a normal prostate cells alter and starts growing in an uncontrolled way. The Prostate Cancer Foundation says there usually aren't any early warning signs, but in rare and advanced states, symptoms like frequent urination and blood in the urine or semen can occur. So doctors gave Grandpa Ed two options, radiation or surgery to remove his prostate. He tells me in making that decision, he considered his own dad, who also had prostate cancer.
My daddy lived to be 100. I want to outlive him.
He chose the surgery with no sign of cancer since. Trent says his grandpa's diagnosis is a wake-up call.
My dad and I have to really sit up and pay attention because the stats are that it runs in the family.
An awareness this dad says he plans to pass on.
Now, for me personally, it's my son, protecting the future generations.
And for Grandpa Ed, a message for everyone.
Got to take care of this body. You only got one.
So maybe you're like Grandpa Ed and Trent and you have a family history of prostate cancer. The foundation recommends talking to your doctor about screening at age 40. Now that's the same for those with a history of breast, colon, ovarian, or pancreatic cancer. And if you're a black man, since African American men are 75% more likely to develop prostate cancer than white men and more than twice as likely to die from the disease. The screening age for those with no history and are not black is 45. So go ahead and have the talk. Remember, early detection is important here. The Prostate Cancer Foundation says 99% of all prostate cancer is treatable if detected early. Shari Armstrong, Fox 4, in your corner.
Nice, Shari. Grandpa Ed had surgery more than 10 years ago, and since then, we've seen new and even non-invasive treatments for prostate cancer. We'll show you some of those ways throughout the month of September. And if you'd like to learn more about our partnership with the Prostate Cancer Foundation, head to our website, fox4now.com. Is this the end of a long-standing military tradition? What could lead to the end of Stars and Stripes newspaper? Derek?
Well, Naples hit a record high again this afternoon, tying the old record back in 2001 of 96 degrees. There's more of that on the way for the holiday weekend. Your forecast is coming up. All right, taking a live look at our Rubenstein live cam here for tonight, looking at Pine Island Road in the intersection with Nicholas there, and things are dry tonight as opposed to what we were dealing with this time last night. Did have some showers and storms in the area. Tonight, not so much. Only a few isolated storms popped up, but it looks like we'll have a few more for the weekend. We'll talk about that and a look at your forecast into Labor Day here in just a few minutes. But we've been tracking the tropics lately. We've got several areas that we're watching. A couple of invests here, Invest 91 and Invest 92. Looks like number 2, though, has a high chance for development as it makes its way off towards the west. Right now, there's still a lot of uncertainty as to exactly the evolution of how these things are going to be moving across the Atlantic. This is getting to that time of year that we need to watch all of these as they make their way across the Atlantic. There are no indications now that we're going to have to worry about these, at least not in the near term. But if anything changes, we'll certainly let you know about it. But there's nothing close to us, though, that we have to worry about. So you can rest easy here for the holiday weekend. That's what's left of the storms that developed earlier today across parts of Collier County, now moving out into the Gulf. And it looks like for the rest of tonight, we're going to be looking at quiet conditions, and it'll be quite warm as well. Upper 70s right now in Clewiston and Moorhaven, both 79 degrees, but 84 for Page Field, Bonita Springs. For Naples at 84, 85, Marco Island. Here's your complete Labor Day weekend forecast. Tomorrow we're going to be around 95 degrees, a few afternoon and evening showers and storms. On Sunday, same story, mid-90s, heat index over 105 with showers and storms during the afternoon. And Labor Day, maybe a little better chance for some storms during the afternoon, and temperatures starting to trend downward. Even though we'll still be in the low 90s, it looks like those temperatures by the middle part of next week will start to back off some more low 90s than mid-90s. All of this is as a result of high pressure in the upper parts of the atmosphere. We have an easterly flow that is giving us those storms mainly during the latter part of the day, but the upper level high is the one that is making us hot, or at least hotter than what we typically see this time of year. And also, it helps suppress the thunderstorm activity this afternoon, sinking air associated with it, basically putting a lid on the thunderstorm activity. Now, we do expect the chances for rain will get a little better next week as that high pressure starts to weaken some, and that will also cause the temperatures to cool down a bit back into the lower 90s. You can see the predictor, though, is trying to pop off a few storms tomorrow afternoon and evening, so just keep that in mind if you got a barbecue going or if you have some outdoor plans. There will be that chance for storms late afternoon and evening. Sunday morning, we start off dry. Thunderstorms again will pop up during the late afternoon and evening, so just might be mindful of that. And then the same thing coming up on Labor Day. So very similar to what we've been seeing lately. Next week, though, a little more moisture in the area. A little slightly cooler temperatures and a little better chance for some of those afternoon storms. Partly cloudy and humid tonight, 77 your overnight low temperature. And then for tomorrow, looks like we're going to be around 95 with winds out of the east at about 5 to 10 and some of those storms during the late afternoon and evening. Ingman Marine forecast seas 2 feet. Inland waters a light chop with the UV index running at 11, so have lots of sunscreen on. Scattered storms, though, late afternoon and evening, providing some limited relief. Here's your 7-day forecast. At night, we'll be in the mid-70s, mid-90s during the afternoon through at least Sunday, but we start to lower the temperatures a bit. Still in the low 90s, though, through next week, and a little better chance for some of those scattered storms, mainly during the afternoon and evening, Tuesday through next Friday.
Thanks, Derek. The holiday weekend upon us. But during the pandemic, what city leaders are thinking about expected crowds?
Now.
A Lee County family has some major questions about how students are sent into quarantine. They say the health department made a huge mistake. Last night, Madison, a senior volleyball player at Mariner High School, received a call from the state health department that she may have been exposed to COVID-19. Well, she was told not to return to school and a quarantine for the next 14 days. She wasn't showing any COVID-19 symptoms, she said, and says the school followed all safety guidelines after almost 24 hours and missing an entire day of school. The department called back to say it was all a misunderstanding, as Madison was not even in the vicinity of the infected student.
It's frustrating because that's what they should have started with. They should have started with looking at the seating chart, looking through the cameras. It shouldn't have been based off of memory because, no one has a perfect memory.
Madison will be allowed to return back to school and volleyball practice starting Monday or Tuesday. Monday's Labor Day. We did reach out to the health department regarding the situation, but have yet to receive a response. Stick with Fox 4 as we'll keep you updated. Lee Health is worried that Labor Day weekend could lead to another outbreak of COVID-19. So it's asking people to keep physical distancing and wearing masks when indoors. Places like Fort Myers Beach are expecting an increase in visitors for the holiday. Lee Health saw a major uptick in cases following the 4th of July, and the group's hoping people take the pandemic seriously this weekend. One man who runs houses on the beach tells Fox 4 he doesn't think it'll be as bad this time around.
I kind of don't see it being as crowded as it was over the 4th of July weekend, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that school's back in, and September is always, for the most part, kind of the slowest month.
Well, an important reminder, if you do plan to head to Fort Myers Beach this weekend, bring your mask along because the town is still requiring them inside buildings and even outdoors if you can't keep 6 feet of distance. Teachers can get a complimentary SeaWorld Florida teacher card for a year. That card gives teachers unlimited admission to the park through August 31st, 2021. It applies for all active and certified K-12 grade school teachers in the state. You just have to pre-register online. Go to SeaWorld.com/Orlando and look up teacher. If you want to cool down, Sunsplash Family Water Park is offering a discount. On Labor Day, Sunsplash will give free admission for active or retired military, disabled veterans, and military reservists with an ID or contract. A discount's also available for up to 4 of their family members. And get those fishing rods and bait ready. Florida's offering a license-free saltwater fishing day tomorrow. Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission says it's a great opportunity to introduce someone to fishing. This weekend's a nice time to enjoy fishing from shore or a boat. It is one of 8 license-free fishing days the state offers each year. All bag limits, closed areas, and size restrictions still apply. Well, this fellow's name is Bob, and he comes from the St. Augustine Alligator Farm. Bob tips the scales at 600 pounds. He is pretty big, but he did need some medical attention. Dr. Daryl Hurd to the rescue. Dr. Hurd took charge of the 38-year-old gator at the UF College of Veterinary Medicine, and after a few x-rays determined that old Bob is suffering from a bone infection in the femur. So he'll remain under Dr. Hurd's care until he's healed. Imprisoned for 2 decades. In our next half hour, this man's plea of innocence finally heard. Advocates and loved ones are crying foul after we discover some Florida nursing homes the state is trusting to house COVID patients have histories of failure. Fox 4 News at 10 continues right now.
Live from the station that's in your corner. You're watching Fox 4 News at 10.
And thanks for spending part of your Friday night with us. I'm Jane Monreal. 4 in your corner's Katie Lagrone reveals how some are serving years on the state's watch list, yet still getting paid extra to care for COVID patients.
For Devon Irion, the moment came naturally.
I have no idea why. I just put my hand in heart and just yelled, "Dad, I love you."
It was Father's Day, the last time she would see her 90-year-old father in person. COVID.
They sent him out to the hospital, and ultimately the next morning I found out from the nurse at the ER that he had tested positive for COVID.
At the time, Irion says she didn't know the nursing home her father lived in for nearly 5 years was housing COVID patients in a separate unit. In July, it officially became one of the state's 23 dedicated COVID isolation centers, or facilities contracted by the state to house COVID-positive seniors to help halt the spread of the virus in long-term care settings, according to the state. But unlike that facility, we've discovered many others on the list have histories plagued with deficiencies. 7 of them, or 30%, placed on the state's watch list.
When you're on the watch list, it means that you have performed unsatisfactorily when the state has come in to do their periodic reviews that they're required to do.
Sean Dominic is a Palm Beach Gardens-based attorney specializing in nursing home negligence.
It's not that we're talking about facilities that had deficits that were noted 10 years ago and they've corrected all of those. It's facilities that continue to have deficits in the past few months and deficits in areas that are directly impacted by COVID.
Take Countryside Rehab and Healthcare Center on Florida's West Coast. Its history of deficiencies go back more than a decade. Medicare's overall score below average. And in 2018, it hit the state's watch list for lacking an emergency plan. This year, the 120-bed center was again cited by the state. According to state inspectors, in June, it failed to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 by not implementing its disease prevention plan. Its staff seen not wearing personal protective equipment. A month later, it signed on to care for COVID patients and get paid extra doing it. In contracts we obtained through a public records request, these facilities serving as state isolation centers can get reimbursed more than double their daily Medicaid provider rate. Empty beds, no exception.
We're paying facilities that provide historically substandard care, and we're coming to them and saying, we're going to give you more money.
None of the 7 facilities with histories on the state's watch list responded to our request for comment. Florida's Agency for Healthcare Administration, which chose these facilities, told us in this email all facilities were vetted, receive enhanced oversight, and were in full compliance with state and federal nursing home regulations when designated. U.S. Senator Marco Rubio.
As far as to why the specific ones are chosen, I just don't know, because that's a decision that's made at the state level by the Agency for Healthcare Administration. administration and not the federal government.
No, that's very concerning.
Devon Irion still questions why she didn't know her dad's center was housing COVID patients at the time he was infected. The facility does not have a history of deficiencies, but having recently lost him to the virus, she knows the importance of getting it right and the pain of saying goodbye.
This is something that you really need your brightest and your best on.
The state also tells us they are in daily communication with all of these facilities. Katie LeGrone, Fox 4, in your corner.
Thanks, Katie. The Mississippi man who was tried 6 times for the same crime sees his 20-year saga come to an end. Curtis Flowers is free. Flowers endured nearly 23 years in prison, 6 trials, 4 death sentences, and most recently, months of house arrest for murders he always said that he didn't commit. The U.S. Supreme Court took up a review of his appeal in 2018 after evidence came to light that the district attorney had a track record of striking African Americans from his juries. Police shot and killed the man wanted in the fatal shooting of a far-right Trump supporter in Portland last week. Michael Rhinoel was killed as officers tried to arrest him in Washington state last night. The U.S. Marshals say he was shot after pulling a gun and threatening officers. He was a vocal supporter of the Antifa movement, a loose collection of far-left activists who say they oppose fascism. In an interview on Vice News Tonight that aired moments before his death went public, Rhinoel strongly implied that he was the shooter. He said he believed he and a friend were in danger when he and another protester, 39-year-old Aaron Danielson, was shot and killed in Portland, Oregon.
Had I not acted, I am confident that my friend and I'm sure I would have been killed because I wasn't going to stand there and let something happen.
The interview was broadcast as officers moved to apprehend him in Lacey, Washington. President Trump, apparently reacting to the interview, tweeted moments later after that broadcast, quote, "Why aren't the Portland police arresting the cold-blooded killer of Aaron J. Danielson? Do your job and do it fast. Everybody knows who the thug is. No wonder Portland is going to hell." The mayor of Rochester, New York, suspended several police officers for a detention that led to an asphyxiation-involved death. The suspensions are the result of an incident where 41-year-old Daniel Prude, a black man who died in a hospital March 30th, days after a police detention. Prude, according to police, say was running down a Rochester street naked during a mental health episode. Officers applied restraint on his head, placed a spit hood over it to stop any potential transmission of coronavirus. Rochester Police Chief LaRon Singletary also reprimanded for reporting the death as a drug overdose. PCP was a factor in the death, in addition to asphyxiation, according to the Monroe County Medical Examiner. The Pentagon has moved to close down the Stars and Stripes. It's a newspaper serving American troops since the Civil War. The Pentagon plan calls for dissolving the Stars and Stripes by September 15th, including closing all of its offices worldwide. That means the last issue would be September 30th. The Department of Defense says shutting down the publication would save more than $15 million a year. But it does seem it's at odds with President Trump, who tweeted that he would not let that happen. At least 15 senators sent a letter to Defense Secretary Mark Esper protesting the move on Wednesday. And Senator Lindsey Graham, a veteran, says the paper provides value to its 1.3 million readers. Although he was not among the senators who wrote the protest letter, Senator Graham says shutting down that paper is, quote, premature. His defense comes the same day as a report alleging President Trump disparaged fallen soldiers during a trip to France in 2018. The president and members of his administration are denying its accuracy. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden reacting to a report in The Atlantic saying the president called injured service members, quote, suckers. The report also says when the president was supposed to visit a military cemetery near Paris in 2018, the president asked staff members, quote, why should I go to that cemetery? It's filled with losers.
If these statements are true, the president should humbly apologize to every Gold Star mother and father and every Blue Star family that he's denigrated and insulted. Who the heck does he think he is?
The president says the trip was canceled because of safety concerns due to bad weather. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton's book, The Room Where It Happened, appears to confirm the president's account. Inside UCLA Medical Center for a look at the progress in the search for a COVID-19 vaccine. That's coming up.
All right, we'll get to your weekend forecast here in just a second. We'll take a quick look at the tropics, and things are looking quiet close to home, but we're keeping an eye on several tropical waves out of the eastern Atlantic. We've got 1, 2, and 3. One that's going to be coming off the African coast here by later this weekend. The one that has the best chance for developing immediately here is this one that you see in red.